The psychology of the wilderness. The wilderness was not just a desert, it was a classroom. God got Israel out of Egypt in one night, but it took 40 years to get Egypt out of Israel. In Deuteronomy 8, Moses explains why God led Israel through the wilderness. He says God led them for 40 years to humble them, to test them, and to know what was in their heart. That means the wilderness was not random. It was diagnosis. The Red Sea delivered their bodies, but the wilderness exposed their minds, because freedom is not complete until the slave mentality dies. In Egypt, Israel had routine. They had masters. They had orders. They had food systems. They had predictable oppression. But in the wilderness, everything changed. No permanent houses, no familiar food, no visible supply chain, no Egyptian structure. Now they had to trust God daily. Manna came one day at a time. Water came from impossible places. Direction came from a cloud by day and fire by night. The wilderness forced Israel to live without the systems they used to depend on, and that is why they kept complaining. They were not only hungry, they were disoriented. They were not only thirsty, they were afraid. They were not only tired, they were being retrained. The Ethiopian Bible tradition preserves the Exodus world as a story of deliverance, covenant, testing, and divine order. This matters because the wilderness was not a punishment only, it was preparation. Israel was not just leaving Egypt, they were becoming a nation, and a nation cannot carry a slave identity into a promised land and still remain free. And this is where the psychology becomes powerful. The wilderness removes false security. It exposes what you trusted. It reveals what controls your appetite. It shows whether your obedience depends on comfort. That is why God allowed hunger, then gave manna, not to destroy them, but to teach dependence, because Egypt trained them to survive under Pharaoh. The wilderness trained them to live under God. So the wilderness was not empty. It was full of lessons. It taught Israel that provision does not only come from systems, salaries, masters, or markets. It comes from God. The wilderness feels like delay, but sometimes delay is God removing Egypt from the mind before he gives Canaan to the hands.